Okay, let's go ahead and get started, guys. So, we're going to talk about why we're here. We're going to talk about graphic optimization for Vertimate. Uh, Take 26, hyperbole, but anyway, I digress. One thing I've realized in trying to make this video that I am not in any form or fashion a YouTube personality or good at public speaking. Anyway, so just a couple basics, guys. This video, I'm just going to try and cover two concepts for this, I guess, part one. First is the general background of what is happening in these environments. What's going on? Why is it so hard to render? Second thing I'm wanting to cover is a lot of wasted resources in environments. Stuff that is eating up 20, 30%, probably sometimes even more of your graphics. And what those are going to consist of are our pixel light count and its interaction with textures and the environment. So while we are loading up into our little test scene here, over the display you should see a little overlay of my current system utilization. This scene I'm going to set up to where the changes that I make are going to be exaggerated to enunciate what I'm trying to show you. And oh, look, we've gone into Super Nintendo. Actually, I honestly think like Star Fox on Super Nintendo actually looked probably a lot better than this. Okay. So, a couple things let's talk about. I'm switching over to my virtual desktop right now. Alright, up here we have current utilization. Yay. A few things I want to point out. One, just for reference, so anyone can kind of compare their own setups. Currently on an i7 8700K. Overclock right now is 4.8. Yeah. Shit, I forgot what profile I'm on my GPU, but anyhow. Let's talk about asynchronous warp. Asynchronous warp, for those who aren't familiar, you're going to want to keep an eye on my frame rate. Oculus tries to maintain a solid 90 FPS to prevent motion sickness. Well, that's not always possible. If you start hitting the limits of your graphics card, it will downclock or lock the application running at 45 FPS, so your graphics card doesn't have to work as hard. Then it tries to fill in the gaps between them, so you still have a 90 Hz refresh rate inside your headset, but it's not as intensive for your graphics card. So if you see that frame rate drop to 45% or 45 frames a second, that means I've utilized 100% of my GPU and I can no longer maintain a 90 FPS and it drops my requirements. So that's what we're actually shooting for. And what is this garbage? So, the only reason I know this is a sphere is, one, because of label, two, I put it here, and what's going on here? You see that this is sad. I mean, straight sad. Why? That's what we're here to talk about, to give a core concept of what's going on and how it's eating your resources alive. So, how do we see things as people? As every day, you look at that guy walking across the street. How do you tell that he is not a completely flat 2D surface and perfectly smooth skin? How light interacts with that man's shape and the texture of his skin. Everything in here has a texture. And as a note, guys, I am not a graphic designer. I know the bare minimum of any rendering software. So for you guys who do DAZ 3D for a living, or even just hobbyists, my explanations are going to be extremely simple, breaking it down Barney style, because that's how I know it. And I'm probably going to have a lot of inaccuracies, and if I do, please point them out to me. So, real world case in point of how light interacts to show form. Everybody here has probably seen this. This is a graphite drawing of a cue ball. We can tell it's round by the way the light's giving us a little highlight from the direction, and primarily from the way that the shadow is going behind here. Or the shadow is, showing the form as it curves away from the light, and then the shadow it's casting on the ground. We're trying to achieve the same concept inside Vertimate and 3D modeling in general. This is why it's so difficult. Let's go ahead and... Now, hey, that's a little better. Look at that. At least I can tell it's a ball. But it still looks like garbage. Now, why is this? Because the light is assigning an illumination value. Super simple. Light's this right here. This point is this far away from the light. It's brighter than the points further away. And oh, hey, look, I'm being obscured. So it stops assigning those values. And it looks like an approximation of a shadow. But we're actually getting the form of the, of the ball just because of the geometry of how far away this point is versus this point is. So we get that grade of lighting, and it gives us a circle. This kind of math is super simple. Your GPU can handle this kind of stuff all day, every day. Oh wait, I gotta do it. Take note of my GPU utilization right now with way too many lights now. 1, 2, 8, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Let's take a look at my GPU utilization. Before I popped into my roughly 40%. Nothing. Okay. Why did I show you that? Let me clear out some of these so I don't screw up the... what I'm trying to show here. Now, let's talk about pixel light count. Whoa. Take a look at that. Now that looks a whole heck of a lot better than before. But did you see my GPU utilization spike up? Why? Because now this light has been allowed to interact with the texture of this object. Rough, smooth, reflective. Now it has loads more to calculate. It has to figure reflections, shadows, their interaction with the texture. This is something that can take, let's say, half the models in this this application are, I think, they're Gen 2 DAZ 3D models. Same concept. You have a shape, object, basically a skeleton of boxes that approximates a human form, and then you wrap that in a textured skin. The application will calculate how the light would interact with that texture, and you get that realistic return. These kind of renders can take minutes sometimes, and we're trying to approximate that in real time in VR. This is mind-blowing. Mesh VR creator, God, are you there? I love you. Anyway, so see the shift? Pixel light count is only allowing one light to interact with the texture at a time. Now, I'm showing you that because quick and dirty will help, but wait, what am I doing? Now, hey, look, my image is even getting more detail to it. Starting to look pretty interesting. But even with just these two, my GPU usage is getting a bit toasty. Hey, wait, you go away. So, there's our core concept. Now, let's do a demonstration on how we can use this knowledge to free up our resources. Because it's all about the resources. I bet the guys who haven't exited out of this video just yet are like, hey man, I was expecting some VR boobage. Why do I not have my VR boobage? Don't worry, we'll get there. Probably part 2. Okay, so here we have our scene. Got my nice little room that took me 4 or 5 hours to finally put together. We got my model right here, and I have her perfectly illuminated just how I want her, and I'm ready to start my scene, and I jump in and hit the button, and my frame rate takes a dump. Yeah. You see that? I hit asynchronous warp by drawing a ball. Why is this so hard? Because it is hard. Now, what can we do about it? So, there's a quick and dirty way. Of course, everyone's probably already put together. Oh, well, there we go. Oh, hey, look, my frames went back up to 90. But that's probably not going to work in the majority of cases. So let's go ahead and back up and frame rate tank. So these lights that I'm using just to illuminate my environment are still interacting with the texture. Even these ones that are far away are still going to reach out and touch it. And your GPU is going to have to calculate how it is going to interact with your environment. Not only is it having to do that much more complicated math, VR works exactly like eyesight does. We have 2 cameras, we have 2 eyeballs pointed at an object, and we focus on that object from 2 different angles. That's how we get depth perception. So it's actually having to calculate this twice from 2 completely separate angles. It has to figure out 2 separate, traces of the light, what I can see around this way, what I can see around this way, and it's asking a lot of your hardware, a lot. Now, in our environment, for this stuff that I just want my environment to look halfway realistic. I don't want it eating up 20% of my GPU, and in this case right here, actually more of my GPU than the part of the environment I actually care about. So, look at your render mode. In a perfect world, if our GPU usage spiked, render mode would make the the one that we want, some way to set it, would automatically switch over to force vertex, however you want to pronounce that. But you see how my GPU usage is slowly going down, and I'm probably back in 90 FPS by now. And hey, look at that. I now have a still fairly good quality image. My environment's completely illuminated the way I want it, but I'm not peeking out. These lights that we use, whether to illuminate our environment or ambience, if they interact with the model in any way, it has an impact on your performance. Now, it might only be 10%, but that's still 10%. That can make the difference between asynchronous warp or a choppy session and perfectly smooth gameplay. Next, I'll probably go through all the other settings to try to give a good demonstration and explanation of what they are, what they're doing, and their impact on your session. Until I can put that together, guys, hopefully this helps some of you out. And if not, hey, thanks for watching. Stay frosty, guys.